Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclarke.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clarke. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Rough, Tam McManus and Alison McConnell with me here on this Monday. We'll look back over the weekend's World Cup qualifier for Scotland. We'll hear from Steve Clarke and Stephen O'Donnell. We'll also discuss the Hearts situation. You can give us your view on Robbie Neilson as the Hearts manager. Christophe Berra's announced he's leaving. We'll discuss that. Scott Allen moving to Inverness Cally Thistle. The search for a Celtic manager. Jermaine Defoe wants another year at Rangers. And we'll also talk about fans returning to major sporting events. All of that in the equation. You can hit the follow and the share on our Facebook page. We'd love you to join the football family on our YouTube channel as well. Just simply hit the subscribe button and we're on our way. Okay, Roughie, Israel won, Scotland won.
Yeah, well, Tam told me we'd be sitting here with 4 points, so obviously I'm a bit gutted about the result, but no, I think we all have to say it's another 2 points dropped. You know, this is a team that's 75 in the world, you know, and we should be beating them, whether it's home or away. I don't think we give ourselves a good start in any of the games. I don't think we show intent enough to these teams. You know, we seem to say to them, right, you have the ball and we'll be in the back foot and we'll just not lose the game. And I think that seems to be the priority. Don't lose the game. And then all of a sudden we go behind and we'll go to change it all and we look a wee bit better. Still not good enough to win the game, but the second half was better. But the stats are there. No wins in 5 and only 3 wins out of 10. You know, it's not good reading. So we have to get better.
Picking up on that, I don't think there's any argument over what Roughie's just mentioned there. Quite simply, I think it's almost as if we're waiting to try and be punched into some sort of reaction when we're playing football. We are overly cautious. We should be taking the game to them. The first half was murder.
Yeah, listen, I think that's the worst display I've seen from Scotland in a while in the first half. I felt we were very, very fortunate to win 1-0 down. I feel David Marshall should have saved it. I thought it was pure goalkeeping. Don't close them down quickly enough at the edge of the box either. But Scotland were terrible in the first half. They gave Israel far too much respect. As Roughie said, they're a decent team. They've got some good players middle to front. But at the back, I don't think they're great. And we sat off them and let them dictate the game to us. It wasn't good enough. And there's absolutely no doubt that Stevie Clarke and the coaching staff have gave them all a rocket in the second half, at half time, because second half it was a lot better. We came out, Ryan Fraser gets a great goal. And we think you're going to go and win the game. But we never really created anything at all towards the end of the game either. So, bitterly disappointed. And I feel now, you know, we're miles away from getting in that top 2. We're going to have to take 4 points from 6 off of Denmark or Austria. We've got to have to beat them away from home, or maybe something at home. We've got to win the head-to-head to them, because I felt as if we had to take 18 points from the 3 weak seeds, Israel, Moldova and Faroe Islands, and it's not happened.
Yeah, Alison, Marshall under scrutiny. Listen, if we're going to be critical, we're being positive about Steve Clarke. We've got to be critical on the way his team set up on the start of the game, the 5 at the back. As Roughie said, it's overly cautious. Then we have to somehow react when we lose a sloppy goal. You know, I think Scotland need to be a high-pressing team, a team that works their socks off to try and create more chances by forcing mistakes, Alison. I don't think we're a team that can sit in and think we'll maybe pinch the odd chance here and there.
I think you're right. I think you really want to be going for an attack as the best form of defence. I also thought they were just like the boys have said, I thought it was just too passive. I thought it was just... the first half an hour, you could just sense that the goal was coming. I felt as though it was just a matter of time before Israel took the lead. I thought Scotland were very sloppy. And all of a sudden, after the excitement of qualifying for the European Championships and all the euphoria about looking towards this summer and looking ahead to June, you've started this World Cup qualifying campaign, and it just feels so reminiscent of every campaign that we've been in over the last 20 odd years. It's just 2 games in and very firmly on the back foot already. I think I know there's plenty of games to come and there's a potential there for making up ground, but already you're up against it. Already it's very, very difficult now to see away, and you're talking about thinking, oh, you need to take 4 points off of Denmark in the two head-to-heads, or you need to go away and beat Israel away. These aren't a given at all. I think it's like you've given yourself a formidable ask and a huge mountain to climb now if you're going to try and make it into the qualifiers.
Yeah, and just a reflection. I think a reflection of that is Andy Penman's just posted. He says 4 attempts to beat the 78th ranked team in the world, and we've failed 4 times. It's just not acceptable. It's not good, that's for certain. Talking points, lots of people offering their own view on the Scotland performance. Our reporter Gabriel Antoniazzi has 5 things to get us thinking.
Scotland drew 1-1 in Israel to move on to 2 points in their World Cup qualifying group. Here's 5 things we learned from the game. Number 1. Scotland started with their go-to 5 at the back formation, but were far too deep and let Israel control the game without creating many chances for themselves. A switch to 4 at the back at the interval allowed midfield dominance and another attacker on the pitch, which created the goal and a couple more chances. 5 at the back is solid against the bigger nations, but a defender must be sacrificed in games the Scots should win. 2. Ryan Fraser has only got 15 caps and missed the last set of fixtures with injury, but he clearly loves playing for his country. The Newcastle United man is the only player in the entire squad that is blistering pace, and he offers something different. He has 3 goals in his last 11 matches, scoring in both of his last 2 starts, and he should do that again. 3. Ryan CHRISTIE has been Scotland's most consistent outfield player of the last 18 months, scoring 4 times whilst playing in a variety of positions. He was dropped to the bench on Sunday, understandably, given the compacted schedule, but Scotland looks so static in attack without him. His energy and dynamism makes such a difference, and he's another who must play. 4. David Marshall and John McGinn were awarded the Player of the Year trophy for 2020 and 2019 respectively, but both have struggled in 2021. McGinn admitted he's been off it for his club Aston Villa lately, and despite a stunning equaliser on Thursday night, he had his worst game in a Scotland jersey yesterday, and he's not a forward. Marshall has also struggled at club level and should have comfortably batted away the Israel goal, having also spilled one against Austria. 5. Shea Adams has starred in the Premier League, but it was difficult to know if Clarke would use him as a second striker or a number 9. He had little to feed on, but he held the ball up extremely well and offered runs in behind, whilst coming close with a second half effort. He won't play in a 2 with Lyndon Dykes, but he's pushing to start instead of the big forward at Euro 2020.
Well, sometimes I agree with Gabriel's assessment, sometimes I don't. I'm not too sure I agree with him, Roughie, on CHRISTIE. I think CHRISTIE, Andy Robertson and John McGinn are off it at the moment. I don't think they are as dangerous as they should be.
No, they don't seem to be complementing each other. You know, they're fantastic individuals. We all know what they can do at their clubs, but they've not really got their act together at international level. They all seem to be playing as individuals, you know, rather than collectively. I do agree with Chad Adams. I just worry about him. You know, he seems to be like to do all his stuff out wide. He's not really a target man. He's not like Dykes. So I think maybe Dykes and him, you know, and also finding a place for Fraser as well, you know, would be an asset to us. But most of the stuff Gabriel said there is quite true, and I feel sorry for the boy Marshall. You know, he's playing with Derby. They're getting something most weeks, and it was 2 bad goals. You know, that the Austria game and that one. And if you want to be really hard, you can say it's cost us 4 points, but he's got us to the Euros, so he gets away with it.
Yeah, well, it's not a case of getting away with it. It's a case of actually being more positive, I think. I wanted to see us being more aggressive, Tam. I wanted to see 2 up front. I wanted to see us cause them problems. And in the end, you actually just get to the point where you're absolutely frustrated with players who can't play a pass, can't get the ball into the box. And then, of course, you had a situation where, I mean, you as a striker, Tam, Scott McTominay had the ball 18 yards out. And you just wanted him to blast his foot right through it and test the goalie.
Yeah, listen, Peter, it wasn't good enough. You know, we've spoken about it plenty of times. You know, when you're playing against the smaller teams, you've got to play 2 up front. And I think we had to go over there. But the thing is, you're trying to squeeze Kieran Tierney and Robertson. And I think that's the conundrum that Stevie Clarke's got. Obviously, second half, he moved Kieran Tierney into left centre-back and Robertson left-back. And Kieran Tierney was outstanding, probably our best player again. Can play in a variety of positions, and it freed up Robertson to go and play left back. So I think he's got to play 4 at the back. When you're playing games like against the Faroe Islands or Moldova or Israel, you've got to play your 2 up front. Different if it's against bigger teams and you've got to dominate the middle of the park. So no, it wasn't good enough, Peter. And I just think that there was too many players off it. John McGinn, I'm a massive fan of John. I thought he had a shocker last night. I thought it was one of the worst games I've ever seen him. I thought he was hopeless. So you've got guys like that who you're hanging your hat on, who've been brilliant for you, and Marshall as well, who had an off night. So us as a nation, we've got to have 8, 9, 10 players really at it to win games, and we just never had that last night.
Yeah, Frank Green says Tierney is by a mile Scotland's best player. Ali, he is. And I wonder if we're shackling ourselves with the Andy Robertson must play left back. Tierney cross balls for Arsenal is dangerous. And I wonder if we have to look and say to ourselves, well, somebody needs to bite the bullet. If Tierney had to sit on the sidelines, then maybe Andy does at some point.
It's a very brave call to make, isn't it? But like you, I think I'd be tempted to experiment with it. I think Tierney can play at the left side of a back four. You can play the left centre back role. But yeah, I think it's been a real headache for various managers just trying to accommodate both players without compromising. But I thought Tierney was the outstanding player on the pitch last night. I thought umpteen times he was trying to carry the ball out, trying to push us forward. He was the one player who looked as though he had a bit of aggression about him, as though he had a bit of spirit about him, as though he just had that little bit of quality. But I think, given Andy Robertson's reputation, we all know what he's achieved at club level, and we know how important he's been as an international player over the last 3 or 4 years. I think it would be an exceptionally bold call to make, but I'm with you. I think maybe it's time to try it.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say to you guys is Steve Clarke mentioned, okay, we're unbeaten in these 2 games. He doesn't know if it's a good 2 points or a bad 2 points over 2 games.
We've played a lot against them. There's never anything in the game. We actually said that when I spoke with the Israeli coach after the game, how close the games are. So we just have to keep doing what we have to do. We have to pick up the points as and when we can. We're unbeaten. 2 points. I don't know if 2 points is good or bad. But you're asking me to predict the future. No, I'm afraid I can't do that.
I understand where he's coming from, Roughie. He can't predict the future, but we can predict the present. It's not good enough.
Yeah, we might be unbeaten, but we're not winning. And if you go into any of these games, I mean, there's Tam's already sat down and looked at all the games that we're playing and picking up possible points here and there. And you don't get to finals drawing games. If we continue to draw games, you're losing 2 points every time you're playing. And the other good teams will win games. I mean, Denmark's already went to Israel and beat them. I'm not sure about Austria. I mean, I don't know how good they are, but it's us that are dropping the points, nobody else. And it's okay saying Austria and, that they're playing each other on Wednesday night and somebody's going to lose points. If Austria win that game, that's going to make it even harder for us, because Austria are the team that we're going to try and catch. So it's okay saying, yeah, we'll probably beat the Faroe Islands maybe 3 or 4-0, and everybody's going to go, whoopee, we're getting into the Euros and a winning game, not a winning run. But have a look at Croatia's scores and Czech Republic's scores. Czech Republic have got their act together now, and they're looking good. We just need a win, a good 90 minutes of attacking football that can make us look good again.
Yeah, I agree with you, Roughie. I think we need to. I mean, I don't think I'll read anything into the Faroe Islands game. I think we need to be attacking. I think we need to start looking at being a high-pressing, high-intensity side that can try and force the other teams into making mistakes in their own first third of the park. As far as slip-ups coming up, we can't afford too many of them, according to Stephen O'Donnell.
I think you always look to win your games. I think only come the end of the tournament or the campaign can you really see if it was a missed opportunity. I certainly think being undefeated in the first 2 games is a positive start. We knew from the get-go that this was going to be a tight group. There's not much between a lot of the teams, and we need to make sure we don't slip up badly.
Okay, I think you put a wee bit of spin on that, Alison. So we'll kind of we'll disregard the little spin of the 2 points and look to the situation we're talking about with the other teams. Denmark, I watched the highlights. I mean, they spanked them by 8, Moldova, and they look as if they're going to be useful.
Yeah, and they've got I think for me, the real barometer of the quality within your team is when you look at where your international players are playing their club football, and you know they're playing in top leagues. I think it's a real concern. I think if we're being honest, and you look at the group, you had to go. Excuse me, but you had to go to Israel last night and try and win that game. We really needed 4 points from the opening 2 games just to have a fighting chance, because the danger is now, after the opening round of fixtures, that you're already becoming marooned away from the top 2 teams.
Yeah. Is there any other player? Yeah, Tam?
I think that Austria and Denmark will both take 6 points off of Israel. I think they'll both beat them home and away. I really do, and that puts us right up against it, because, as I said earlier, we're going to have to take 4 points out of 6 against one of the 2, and I don't see us doing that, particularly against Denmark, who I think are a very good side. Austria, you need to go to Austria and win. You know, I just think, don't want to be doom and gloom Roughie style, but it was a very disappointing result.
Yeah, remember, Tam, if you hang about with Roughie too much, you start to see dark clouds on a sunny day. I'm only giving you my experience over 9 years, when I think, you know, I'm in a really good mood, and then suddenly I hang about with Roughie for a long period of time, and then that's what happens. You start to throw fits, get angry, then you get dumped from the tennis doubles. You don't get picked anymore. That's how it happens, Tam. I'm just letting you know exactly what happens with Roughie's apparent friendship. Listen, we do need to do it. I'm a bit worried about you, Tam, though, because you know the head-to-head non-stop. Because you're in lockdown, you've now looked at all the fixtures for the next 6 months ahead. I mean, honestly, you're a young boy. Get a grip of yourself, will you? It's all
I've no life.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, Faroe Islands, we've got to just go and cuff them, Roughie, and then hope that... Is there any player, Roughie, that we're missing that you think's coming in? James Forrest apart, that might come in and he might look to change it?
I think a good James Forrest, 100% will cause most defences trouble. We've seen what he's done with Celtic in European football. We've seen what he's done with Scotland, did he not? I think he scored a hat-trick against Israel, or scored a hat-trick against somebody. So he offers you goals as well, but he offers you a bit of excitement. He offers you somebody going at people, and if you've got decent guys in the middle, he's going to put a decent delivery in. I'd like to see Dykes and Adams together. I mean, I remember, just remind me, who was Dykes' first game away from home, and he came in and he was just a battering ram. He just went up and noised every centre half. He was elbowing them, he was pushing them about. I would like to see somebody like that with Chad Adams beside him and maybe Fraser on the other side. So I think that's the way ahead. We've got to show people that we mean to win games, not just say, oh, we're happy with draws.
Yeah, let's just call him Bert. Roughie, it's easier for you.
Chad, is American Granny.
Honestly, by the time Roughie finishes the day, he'll be known as Chad Hogan. It's a Stonewall certainty. He just makes the name comes into his head. Anyway, apart from anything else, Tam, you know all about this. Lots of people will talk about it, whether it's amateur, junior, professional football. If you are on your own as a striker, I mean, a lot of people are maybe not enamoured with Lyndon Dykes at the moment, but he's the only style of player that we've got like that. If you are on your own up front, doing doggies from one end of the park to the other, chasing, trying to hold in, trying to bring your midfield in, it's demoralising at times. It's a thankless task.
It is, Peter. I've actually played that role myself a few times, and listen, it is demoralising. If your back 4 or back 5 is not squeezed up the park, and in touch with your midfield, and your midfield's not in touch with you, and there's just massive gaps. And I felt as if the distances in the first half were massive. Scotland were playing so deep, the midfield was sitting on top of them, and then you had Adams up front himself, and it was just a lump up to him and trying, he's got to hold it up for 5 minutes, before the midfield gets up to support him. So, first and foremost, you've got to be brave at the back. You've got to squeeze the game, and I just felt we let Israel, dictate to us and push us back. And it left the gaps between. But I was impressed with Shea Adams. I thought he had a good game last night, and maybe playing the two of them together as an option. Faroe Islands, I think that's a perfect opportunity to maybe play the two of them together. I think it's a game that we should win and win comfortably. So why not play them together? See if we can get a wee relationship, go and get a couple of goals, and it gives you something else to think about going into the Euros.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's how the group looks, Ali, at the moment, and two teams up there that we don't want to see up there. And as Roughie said, the permutations from the midweek results could go against us again.
Yeah, and even just take a look at the goal difference there. Look where Denmark are already. You know, it's almost a point of an advantage even at this early stage. I have to be honest. I think we're all realists here. I think Scotland have given themselves a mountain to climb, and I appreciate it's very early days, and you would hope that they would go and win comfortably on Wednesday night at Hampden, and hope for the best between Denmark and Austria. You really want that one to end in a draw, so that we don't get any further away. But I just think you have to do it yourself. You have to take command of the group yourself. And I think realistically, just these opening 2 games can be bruising.
Yeah, I think the general consensus from all of us is we need a change of attitude to the way we actually go about it. More aggressive, certainly more adventurous in the way we actually set up. There seems to be I don't know about you guys, but Roughie, there seems to be a real obsession at the moment with a 4-2-3-1 or a 3-5, and then it's like 5 at the back, and then 3, and then a 1 and a 1 off. It's almost as if the days of looking for 2 strikers up or 2 people playing off each other is, so you're made to feel as if you're old if you wanted 2 strikers up front nowadays.
Yeah, but was you told as you were talking to, I can't remember who the manager was. Was it the Italian manager who said somebody asked him what kind of formation you're going to play or something like that, and he says, well, I'll wait and see what players are available. And whatever players are available, that's the formation I'll be playing, because I'll be playing to everybody's strengths. So you'd be hoping that's what they're doing when they meet up 5 days before a game, that they're trying all these different formations and looking at the best one. But I just don't think he's got the right one yet.
Okay. You can give us your view on Scotland. How do you think it's going to go overall in the group? As you can tell right now, I think a few of us are just losing a wee bit of faith on whether we think we're going to make it to a World Cup off the back of qualifying for the Euros. We're going to switch our attention for Hearts fans. We'll be talking Celtic Rangers later on as well. We're talking fans coming back into stadia up and down the country. You can give us your view on that. Some breaking news. Aberdeen's Shay Logan has sealed a transfer to Hearts. And that's ahead of a permanent switch, which will, I think, as everybody knows, will avoid being a teammate of Scott Brown, no less. Alison, what a chance for the two of them to team up, but she has decided I'm off to Hearts. So
that was my first thought, just as you were reading it out. That was my first thought too. I put it this way: I think Hearts could do with any help that they can get at the minute. I think he might just. I think they could do with someone going in, but it's an interesting one, because, funnily enough, it was when we were talking last week about Scott Brown going up to Pittodrie and reviewing some of the clashes that have taken place between the players and over the last few seasons. That was one of the ones that had come to mind. So yeah, someone's obviously decided that. You maybe would rather avoid it.
Yeah, interesting. Anyway, apart from anything else, the Hearts situation, I expect, and certainly from speaking to more than a few people, Tam, I expect Hearts to be making a change. Now, if they're sticking with him, Robbie Neilson, I think the Hearts fans, you can tell by some of the banners that were out there at Tynecastle on show, there were fans who disobeyed the call not to go there and protest at Tynecastle, but it was Neilson and Budge out. And then over and above that, I think there was one with Budge and Levine that stole our club, which I think was basically a wee bit over the top. But Tam, it's not good. They're not in a good place, even though they're out in front in the league. Some people say that's the remit for them. But the Hearts fans are far from happy. I actually thought they might have pulled the trigger this week, and that's certainly from quite a few people that I spoke to. They thought Anne Budge would look and say, as you know yourself, Tam, when an owner or a chief executive is being called for to get the sack, that's when they usually sack the manager.
Yeah, listen, I think Robbie's under serious pressure. You don't want to see anybody losing their job, but I feel as if he's under serious pressure now, because just following up the obviously dreadful result up at Brora Rangers, to lose at home to Queen of the South, he needed to win that game just to give himself a little bit of breathing space, and he could have said, listen, it's been a one-off, we've bounced back, but for Queen of the South to go there and win, it just piles even more on him. So I think that Anne Budge will be looking at it closely now, because once fans start, as you said, congregating around the ground and calling for people's heads and calling for her head, then she's got a decision to make. But as we've seen with Craig Levein, she's not easily swayed. I mean, she should have pulled the trigger on him months before, and she let him continue on, and that's probably contributed to the mess they're in just now. So you've got to give credit to the Hearts supporters. They put in, 150, 180 grand a month through the foundation of Hearts. They'll be taking over the club. So they've obviously got a massive say in there. So I think that Robbie, obviously his remit was to win the league, but they're not playing well. And they should be playing better with the budget and the players have signed. There's just no sort of rhythm about their play. You don't know what system they're playing, what's their style of play. There's nothing there for his Hearts supporters to be positive about. And I feel as if you let it go to the end of the season, he wins the league. If they get off to a bad start next season, I think they'll sack him very, very quickly. And then he's signed all those players in the summer. So I think they've got a decision to make, and it's got to be made fairly quickly. Whether you stick with him long term, or you get rid of him and you bring someone else in.
Well, I'm only speculating at this, Alison, but I still think there is an influence there from Craig Levein, even although he's been dispatched from the club. Hugh McDonald last week rhymed off a whole list of failures that Anne Budge has been party to. I know the Hearts fans are not happy with the board, but if you're the foundation of Hearts coming in to take over the club, I think there will be a clean sweep. I think she's got to possibly act now to show that there is a change there that can in some way pacify their anger.
I agree, and I think that the danger is, as Tam just referenced, I think the danger is that you go on until next season, you stagger on, you know that you're going to win the championship, you know that you're going to go back into the top flight, but you go back in on the form that's there just now, and very quickly you can find yourself in a bigger mess. I think for the players and the quality that's in that Tynecastle side, and you have experienced players, you have international players, you have players who have been over the course at Premier League level, who have won things, who have a fairly winning mentality. I think the return this season has shocked a lot of people. I think they've been inconsistent. I don't think there's been any fluency to things, and I think they look like a team who are floundering. They don't look like a team where there's any confidence. They don't look like a team where there's any belief at all.
Yeah, and what's this to follow, Roughie? Because he ain't got an easy game coming up against Dunfermline away from home. So, here's a third game, which is he needs like a hole in the head.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with anything that's happening at Hearts at this precise moment now. Everything you're saying is right. They've got a budget better than everybody else. They're not playing well. It looks as if they went off the rails and everything. But as we all know, the only thing that's going to keep them there at the end of the season is winning the league. At the beginning of the season, he'd have been called into the boardroom and the board would have said, right, this is a priority for the year. Number one, get back to the Premiership. If we get a good cup run, that'll be an added financial bonus in the climate we're in. And that'll be his two priorities. And he's failed in one miserably, and that'll be a tick against him. So I think he'll be there at the end of the season. And then at the end of the season, you make a judge, okay, you've got his promotion, but we're not happy the way you're taking the club. And for me, that's when you make the decision and you identify somebody who's going to take the club forward in the Premiership. I think he'll get away with it now because he's going to win the league. All the other teams are so poor, it's unreal.
Yeah, I disagree with you, Roughie. I think there might be change. I can only tell you from the people I'm talking to, but listen, she may well stand by him. She's been guilty of hanging on too long before, so we'll wait to see. But certainly when you start to see this escalation of anger from the supporters as well, that sometimes forces people's hands. And listen, we try and only deal with the facts. I don't have an agenda against Robbie Neilson. I was surprised that they brought him back before. I think Craig Levein had an influence in that. I was surprised because Hearts fans didn't really want him there first time around. They were wanting him out the door before he moved. So to get him back in has been a major surprise. Here's the results from the weekend in the Championship. And of course, Charlie's boys in the end just snuck it by 3-2, Tam.
Yeah, great result. I said two of my old teams. Didn't know who to cheer for really, but listen, great comeback for Dundee. I think it was a game that they had to win. we didn't want that as a draw. If you're looking for one of them two clubs to go and put pressure on the Hearts, needed them to win. So I think Dundee now close the gap a little bit with a couple of games in hand, and they can go and put a little bit of pressure on the Hearts. But good to see Jason Cummins back scoring goals again. I think he's a talented boy. I think he's maybe got his head's been up in the air a little bit. He's got to get his head down and concentrate on football, and he's doing that at Dundee. And I was impressed. I've been impressed with his attitude this season, and he's doing the business for Dundee and James McPake and repaying the faith in them. So great to see him back scoring goals as well, and a great result for Dundee.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been I don't know if I don't expect the answer from you, Tam, but there's been a hell of a lot of talent come out of Hibs. Players that I thought would go on to superstar status. Only two or three maybe that I can think of from that really talented bunch have gone on to have a really great career. Whittaker, I think, is fair. Brown's an absolute stonewall certainty. I'm going to include Kevin Thompson because I thought Kevin Thompson was a fantastic player, just really unlucky with injuries.
Yeah, he was. I've had Stephen Fletcher to that as well. Peter, you forgot about him. Stephen Fletcher came through at Hibs. It's a great career.
Yeah,
so
good. I haven't.
No,
yeah,
listen, it's
good point.
Aye, it's listen. There's a whole variety of reasons why people and players don't fulfil their potential, and fair play to the guys that do that. They're hungry. They've been motivated throughout their career, and sometimes when you get too much too early, it can affect you and go to your head. And maybe that's been the case for a few boys that's come through at Hibs. But it's good to see Cummins. He's still, I think he's 25, 26. He's still got a good career ahead of him if he can just get his head down and concentrate and focus on being a professional on and off the pitch.
Yeah, I think that's the key point. By the way, I wasn't having a pop at you because I always look at you as my glass is half full. For people to have the career that you had, some people would give their right arm for that. But obviously, Roughie doesn't really care for that because he's had a glittering career at 3 World Cups and all that. He's on a different level, Tam, as you know. What about the search, Ali, for the Celtic manager? It goes on. It gets more ridiculous by the day. I heard a few ex-Celtic players saying that they would be really excited by Roy Keane. I thought, my God, the lunatics have taken over the asylum here with the Roy Keane situation. And then some of the papers putting in it'll be great with the dream team of Nicky Butt, and I'm thinking, have we all lost the plot on this, Alison? I mean, Thierry Henry is the latest one today. Said he'd be interested in talking about the Celtic job.
I think what we're doing is filling the void here. I think what you're seeing is a direction that no one knows where it's going. I'll be astounded, utterly astounded, if Roy Keane is the Celtic manager. I think all the noise is coming from Roy Keane's side and Roy Keane's camp that he's quite interested in the Celtic job. I'm not sure it's reciprocated. I think if Roy Keane was high up on Celtic's wanted list, I think he would have been in at the club long before now. There would be no logical explanation for waiting until this point in time. In fact, if Roy Keane now was announced as a Celtic manager, the first question you would ask is, well, why did you not get him in sooner so that he could work on the rebuilding process that's about to take place? Because it's fairly substantial, as we've spoken about. I think I honestly think that we don't know what direction it's going in. I'll hold my hands up and say, I'm exhausted by it. I'm exhausted thinking about it. I'm exhausted talking about it, and I'm exhausted trying to work out what direction it's going in. I'm not sure if there are people who might know more than I do, but I just don't know that there's any of us who have a real inkling about what Celtic want and whether or not is there still a move towards a director of football, and if so, do they bring in a director of football before they bring in a manager, or do you bring in a manager who's willing to work with your director of football? The one thing that I would say I expect to happen imminently is maybe bringing in Dom McKay now and getting him in earlier than anticipated so that they can really start the focus, because the clock's ticking for Celtic. The Champions League qualifiers are early. There's not a huge amount of time.
Yeah, interesting. I know you had that point of view over the last day or so. I'm not quite sure Scottish Rugby will let him leave early. That's a thing that I think will go against that. I think he'll have to fulfil his contract. The other aspect of this, Roughie, is quite simply Alison's mentioning there, well, if they wanted Keane, why didn't they get him in right away? What's the delay here? I think the same is true of the Eddie Howe situation. You know, the bookies are up and down with the bets on him, but if Celtic wanted him, he should have been in right now. But I think he's waiting for his Premiership job, which he's gone on record as saying he wants to be either down in the south of England or potentially, you know, like a number of others, Rafa Benitez included, are looking and wondering if the Newcastle job's coming up.
Yeah, well, I think Howe's done enough down in England for other clubs to identify him as maybe somebody who can save a smaller team for getting relegation or even get a team getting promotion. I don't know whether he would fancy Scottish football at all, because we know the financial differences down in England to up here. But it sums me up. If Alison has to get a clue who it is, what chance have the rest of us got?
Yeah, there you are. Absolutely. I can always tell, Roughie, when every journal doesn't have a clue who it is, they all phone each other. You know, the amount of people I've spoken to, I thought, I haven't heard from him in a while. You know, because everybody's taking a scattergun approach to it. Because when you get into that mould of the fear, you don't want to be beaten to the punch on it. You certainly want to try and have as much of an inside track as possible. But you know, Dermot will go about his business. He'll speak to the person, and then we'll see who it is. But certainly, there are a number of candidates, Tam, that I think are putting the fear of God into Celtic fans.
Yeah. There's some of the names getting bandied about. I mean, as Alison said, listen, a lot of it is coming from guys that are out of work and guys who would love the job. You know, and saying they're interested. You know, Roy Keane, for example, saying he's very interested, and it's all coming from his people. And similar, myself and Roughie are interested to go and visit the Playboy Mansion. That doesn't mean that we're going to get a gig. So
yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all coming one-sided. So I think there's still a wee bit to run.
I never really thought you were going to look at the Celtic job availability and then link it to the Playboy Mansion, but each to their own. I will speak to a few contacts to see if I can get you to an invite. But nevertheless, as far as the Celtic job is concerned, lots of people have their own thoughts about who they think should get the job. Give us your thoughts on it on YouTube and on Facebook and Twitter as well. What about Jermaine Defoe, Roughie? I spotted that story saying he'd love to get one more year at Rangers, just maybe a chance to play in front of the fans again. Would it be sentiment, or would it be Steven Gerrard looking and saying, well, hey, you did me a turn. You know, I think you can still come on as sub and offer great value and experience to our strikers.
Oh, most definitely, he's got a part to play. You know, and if you're a professional football player, you've had the success that you've had, you know, plus you've got European football next year, and the thought of playing a bit part in that, you know, he's just somebody you want there, you know, and I'm sure he'll be enjoying every minute of it, and he'll be enjoying it even more when there's 50,000 Rangers supporters in that stadium, you know, and celebrating. And when you're a player, you want to be part of a winning side, and it's just. It's a no-brainer for me. Yeah, take the year and enjoy every minute of it.
He's had a great career, Tam. I mean, he's such a fantastic player. I think he's a Tottenham legend. I'm sure there are a few other clubs that he's played at that absolutely loved him as well. It's nice for him to cap it off with, of course, you know, the Premier League medal that he's going to take and put in his tail.
Yep, I think that's the first one he's won, Premier League title, and obviously the same as the manager, Steven Gerrard. So fantastic for them, you know, at this stage of their career to get that first league title under their belt. And I'd have to agree with Roughie. Listen, I think that he's obviously come to the end of his career. I think this season he's also picked up a few more injuries than usual. I think that's just part of getting old. You know, he's obviously, his body's failing him a little bit in terms of a day-to-day training. So I still think he's got a part to play when you look at Rangers possibly losing Morelos in the summer. You know, I think if you can get a fully fit Jermaine Defoe, he can maybe come on for 15, 20 minutes in tight games, and he can pass his knowledge down to the B team at Rangers or under 18s. He can go and maybe do finishing drills with them. You know, you can see how much a professional, how much he looks after himself off the pitch to still be playing at a level he's playing at what, 38, 39 years old. So No, I think it's a no-brainer for Rangers to try and keep him in some sort of role, because he's a fantastic pro and still got a wee bit to offer on the pitch as well.
Yeah, and of course Rangers against Cove Rangers this week. Ali, we've witnessed from the fantastic donations that the Hearts fans made for their match against Inverness Cally Thistle that a virtual ticket campaign can be a great way to generate funds. I know that Cove Rangers are going to try and do a similar thing, hopefully. They'll get a lot of money from it. They've got memorabilia, prize ticket draws involved in this virtual ticket. It's only a tenner, and 15% of it will go to the NHS. So in football, you'd love to see fans get right behind that as well, Ali.
Oh, without question. I think you really feel for clubs when there's a draw like that made and you know you're not able to maximise it to its full financial potential, because getting a draw like that in the Cup and in alternative seasons can just sustain you for the next few years. It can also just help in so many other ways in terms of bringing in a player here or there in the summer. But I think you feel for them, and I'm sure people will get behind it for that very reason.
Yeah. Tam, I was dying to get your thoughts on the move from Hibs to Inverness Cally Thistle for Scott Allan. I mean, he definitely wanted to play regular football, so Jack Ross thought it was a good idea. He's off up to Inverness, played at the weekend, wants to try and get as much football in to maybe keep his Hibs career alive.
Yeah, definitely, Peter. I think it's a great move for everyone. I think it's a great move for Scott Allan, first and foremost. Listen, we know his health issues this season. I think he's only played 40 or 50 minutes this season, since he's come back from his little heart scare. So I think it's a great decision for him to go up there and play football. Some of the Hibs supporters were moaning about why did they not keep him for 10, 50 minutes at the end of the games, but he's been on the bench, Peter. I've been obviously covering all the games. He's not been coming on. And I don't. The few times he's came on, he's been miles off it. He's miles off it. Even to play 20 minutes in the top flight, you've got to be fit. You've got to be sharp. And I just feel as if he felt himself, Scott Allan, that he wasn't really contributing anything. So he can go up to Inverness. I think he came on for 35 minutes at the weekend. If he can maybe start the next game, he's potentially get 9 or 10 games for now at the end of the season with the playoffs, that he can get his own confidence back, his own rhythm back. And I think if he gets that, he's still got a year left at Hibs. There's no doubt in his ability. It's all about fitness, this move. He goes up there, plays football, gets his confidence back, comes back and challenges for a place. I don't think Hibs are trying to force him out. I don't think Jack Ross is trying to force him out. And the Hibs fans adore him, they love him. And I think you'll see him back at Easter Road next season.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Scott and what he has to offer if he can get himself fit. He's certainly one of the top midfielders in the Scottish game. But fingers crossed he gets back to some kind of fitness with Inverness, gets regular football. As far as getting regular football and getting to watch it and getting into it, Roughie, there's a suggestion from certainly Westminster with regards to fans getting back into grounds. They are now looking at the possibility of the semi-finals at Wembley and possibly the final. 10,000 in for the semi-finals at Wembley, and they're discussing the potential for 20,000 for the FA Cup final in May. Now, if that's down in England, I think there's a wee bit of pressure on the Scottish Government to start thinking about it seriously.
I think there's a wee bit of pressure on the Scottish Government to come out with something on the 10th of April when they want to know if there's any fans getting in to Hampden for the games, before they pull the plug in that. So hopefully they can come up with some kind of solution, because we don't want to see us missing that. Even if we don't want it taken away from us, we want it to be at Hampden. And unfortunately, I think you're right, the English government decided they're going to relax the rules. I think it's 2 days after the Scotland-England game, which is a wee bit of a nightmare. But no, certainly it's on the right track, and I'm sure we saw some fans in at the Israel game there, and it made a wee bit of a difference, a wee bit of an atmosphere. But yeah, I think the Scottish Government will have to come out pretty soon to make sure that we keep these European games. Yeah,
and the Champions League final as well, Alison. UEFA are looking at getting, it could be 9,000, could be more. It depends, the two teams involved, and it also depends on how we view the vaccination process going across Europe.
I think they'll just be monitoring numbers and looking at the daily figures before they come out with an answer. I think everyone would love to see supporters in some capacity get back in. I think we've been crying out for it. I think there were 5,000 supporters in the stadium in Israel last night, and I thought it did make a difference. I thought you could sense it, and I'm sure it must be so different for the players too. I think it's an entirely different feeling when you're running out and there's a bit of noise and there's some atmosphere, and I think it would be awful. I think if the European Championships are played in an empty stadium where our fans are denied any kind of access, I think it'll be awful. I think, but at the same time, I think it'll be dictated by common sense, and it'll be dictated by what the numbers are like. And I think they'll delay making a decision for as long as they possibly can.
Yeah, fingers crossed we start to see people coming back into the grounds here before the end of the season, just to give us hope for the start of the new season, Tam, because, I don't want to go down whether people like vaccinations or not, but clearly the evidence is there that gives us an opportunity for clubs to start thinking some kind of revenue could start to come in.
Yeah, definitely, Peter. I think it's huge, if people start to get vaccinations, and as Ali said there, the science and the numbers, that R rate comes down, and clubs are desperate for people to get back in. Fans are desperate to go to the games. Like I said, we've all been fortunate that we can go to live football, but there's people who have not been to a game in over a year. That's crazy, and people love that, going with their kids or their wife or their pals on a Saturday and watching the football. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get some fans in next year. Whether I don't think we'll get full capacity for maybe into next year, but even if at the start of next season you're getting, 20, 30, 40% of the capacity into grounds, as Ali said, it would make a big difference to the players and the people, mental health, everything. So let's just hope you get the vaccinations, you keep battling through them. I stay up here quite near the Ali McCoy Centre, and that seems to be the hub for the vaccinations in East Kilbride, and it's been mobbed. So it's good to see that they're all getting their jag.
Yeah, I must admit the NHS, they have handled it. They've handled it brilliantly. They've been absolutely super efficient, Roughie. I mean, when you go in and you get it, you go three stages, and then it's all explained to you, and pop off you go. That's you. You're back out the other door within 5 minutes, and if we are led to believe that by June, lots of people will have not only their first jab, but quite a lot of people in Scotland will have their second booster jab as well, Roughie. As a club, Partick Thistle, and in reflection of every other club, are you anticipating full capacity, 50% next season, whatever? Is there a discussion going on at your club about that?
I don't think it affects us as much with smaller crowds. I think our stadium is a 12,000 stadium, and our maximum would be maybe 2.5. So you can really spread people about, whatever the distance is, or you can put some in one stand, some in another stand. So I think the smaller teams will be able to get away around it. I think it's the likes of Rangers and Celtic are going to have to say to their fans, that unfortunately we can't let you in. But I think it's the future. I think it's more of the future. We're looking at, what are people going to be happy with? Are people going to be, supporters going to be happy coming through a turnstile and handing money out? And they're going to be, happy paying for things with cash? The way, we're talking about touching things, that might be a card society, or it might be some kind of card you have to bring out that you can buy things with, your season ticket and all that, and offer prizes. But I think most clubs are looking into lots of ways to just make it a happy environment for the supporters coming in. The supporters, as Tam said, that's missed out in a year. I think you might have to entertain them a wee bit more. We're talking about putting a live area outside where we could have some kind of entertainment an hour or so before the games. Just something to give the fans something back for the money that they've put into the club while they haven't been there.
Yeah. Another thing I was thinking, I don't know how radical it would be at Partick Thistle, Roughie, as far as entertaining the fans would be, maybe playing two up front and attacking. I mean, it seems to be a thing of the past, but it's worked in other countries. I don't know if would you consider that at Partick Thistle? A high press, try and get the ball off the opposition, somebody who can dribble past a player, somebody who can see a pass and pass it forward from the midfield, and then the two strikers work off each other and they score goals. I don't know if it'll catch on, Roughie. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think when you're a team that can score 4 goals, it makes you a wee bit happier than sitting there waiting at one.
Should have said it this week.
No, you're right. I think
four breakaways according to Big Ian Murray.
Well, I'll take 4 breakaways tomorrow night. But certainly, yeah, I think we just have to look at football in a different way when everybody comes back, and give them something that they can enjoy there. Something they've missed for a long, long time.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 quick points before we go, lads. In fact, another point here is the decision on the Rangers players on the COVID, breaking the COVID rules, should be out today. It's not out yet, so we'll probably discuss it on tomorrow's programme. Still waiting on that decision to come out. It was on Friday and then pushed towards the Monday as well. So we don't want to rush the SFA into anything, want to give them as much time as possible. It is, after all, heading towards April. So the other point here is, Roughie mentioned it at the weekend, Tam. He wasn't quite aware of it, that it had been out for a couple of months. But if you like your football, tonight, 9 o'clock, BBC Two, Tam, Finding Jack Charlton. I've watched it already. I think it's, heartbreaking, inspiring, looking at his fabulous career as a player and as a manager with the Republic of Ireland. The Republic of Ireland, incidentally, could do with someone with all of Jack Charlton's qualities again, because Stephen Kenny hasn't won any of his games in 10. They're talking about Neil Lennon as potentially one of the guys who could be in for the Republic of Ireland job.
Now, listen, I hope Stephen Kenny does well. I've obviously worked under him twice in 2 different clubs, and I feel as if he's trying to change the way they play. But along with that, you've got to get results. That was a shocker against Luxembourg, so I think he is under a little bit of pressure. But hopefully they give him more time to change it. Because if you're going to go and give a manager 10 games to change it, totally change his style of play. But Ireland have been dreadful to watch for years. Doesn't matter who the manager's been, Mick McCarthy, Martin O'Neill. If you want to really, really give it a chance to try and change it, then you've got to give somebody more than 10 games. So we'll have to wait and see. But going back onto the Jack Charlton thing, I've seen it as well. I think it's well worth watching tonight on the BBC. You'll be laughing, you'll be crying. It's fantastic. What a character he was, Jack Charlton. I actually read Tony Cascarino's book, which is one of the best autobiographies I've ever read, by the way. I don't know if you read it, Peter, but there's a lot of Jack Charlton in that, and he's some character.
Yeah, absolutely. Well worth it. Some player as well, Roughie, to come into the England camp late on as a centre-half and ends up being a World Cup winner with his brother.
Yeah. He didn't even look like a football player if you had a right good look at him. Just a big skinny guy, but old-style defender, just defend your box. And that's why he was so successful. He didn't have to be good on the ground or anything. Just make the tackles, make the headers. And that's why he's got a World Cup medal.
Yeah, absolutely. Apologies to all big, tall, skinny people who don't look like footballers who actually have made it. Roughie just has batted you right out into left field there if you're big, tall and skinny. I've played against a few who are actually quite good who are big, tall and skinny. Anyway, one last little point. I mean, we talked about Thierry Henry earlier on, Alison, but Thierry Henry, along with Gareth Bale and I think a number of high-profile people are talking about coming off social media until a change is made. They're starting to crank it up now to see if the social media sites are going to take positive action here to try and make people responsible for their comments. The only thing I would say to you, Alison, is I think it's going to be impossible to police it. You would have resources being taken up constantly with it.
I think it is very difficult to police, but at the same time I can understand their stance completely, because at the minute there are people who are free to say and behave in any way they like with little or no consequences. If you spoke the way that people do on social media to someone in the street, you'd find yourself in real bother. But some of what they must receive, and I think particularly when you're talking about racial abuse or any kind of sectarian abuse or any language that's in that kind of vein, I think there should be consequences. I'm not sure if it's even that you have to be accountable in terms of your social media profile and address. We have lots of anonymous tweets, and I'm sure we all of us here, if you're on social media, you'll have come in for a bit of stick and a bit of abuse at times. But I think maybe if it's, you have to be responsible for your account, and your account has to be in someone's name so that you can't hide behind the cloak of anonymity, that might be one step towards doing it. But from Terry Henry's point of view, you can understand why, because at the minute there's no consequence whatsoever.
No, you're absolutely right, 100%. I think we need to align it to your passport, your driving license, your registered address, and if you can't do that, you ain't on. Simple as that. I'm going to leave the last word to Alison Sarah Carroll, who actually has been, I think, with us for a long, long period of time, certainly on the television show and certainly on our digital platform as well. And she just quite simply, she doesn't elaborate, it's just a simple sentence, Roughie, and she says, I dated a few tall, skinny guys. So there you are. That's Alison's contribution to it. It gives us an insight into it, Roughie. Nothing to do with football. Alison just thought she'd share that with us. And I leave you with that thought. And also, of course, if there's any contacts out there that could make a dream come true for Tam McManus and Alan Rough to visit the Playboy Mansion, then do contact us and we'll see if we can organise the flights once it's safe to do so. Look at wee Tam's face lighting up.
Roughie with a new Hefner.
Yeah, absolutely. And meanwhile, family people like me and Alison are only contemplating going to Disney World, because that's what you do when you've got kids. It's as simple as
Disney
that.
World.
Yeah, absolutely. And can't you beat it, Ali, can you?
No, just remortgage before you go.
Yeah, never a truer word spoken, Ali. Listen, enjoy your football. Tomorrow we will discuss, obviously, Scotland in more detail ahead of the game against the Faroe Islands. We'll discuss the penalty coming out for the Rangers players and any other stories that emerge over the course of the next 24 hours. Don't forget to hit the follow and the share and hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Thanks to Ali, thanks to Tam, thanks to Roughie, and from myself, Peter Martin, thanks to you for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit